Hi friends, welcome to our YouTube channel Naraj Academy. The main aim of this lecture is to discuss about the AP SPDCL question paper of 2019 of WE in a very detailed manner. If you like the content of our channel, then please do like, share and subscribe our YouTube channel and don't forget to press the bell icon button so whenever we upload a new video, the direct notifications comes from mobile. If any improvements needed in our video lectures, then please do comment in the comment section. We will definitely include all those improvements in the coming lectures. So why to waste more time? So let's get started. So now we are going to solve the first question. See the question here. The following loss in the electrical machine does not produce heat. So what are the four options? Which losses will not produce the heat in a transformer or the electrical machine? So what are the four options? None of the options is correct. Means all these options are going to eligible to produce the heat in any electrical machines. So therefore now we will discuss more about this one. So we can say that there is no answer for this question, and now we will discuss some of the important facts of all these losses. So basically in any electrical machine, these losses are considered as the major losses, which are the copper losses, eddy current loss and hysteresis loss and the frictional loss. And there are few other losses in the electrical machine. There are also some other minor losses which are present in the electrical machine, but these of low quantity, or we can say it is a very less value. So therefore we are going to neglect those losses. But these losses are considered as the major losses in any electrical machine, which is the copper loss, eddy current loss and hysteresis loss and the frictional loss. So basically if you consider the as an electrical machine, now I am going to assume it as a transformer. So if you take for a transformer, the copper losses is proportional to the load. So whenever the load is increases, means the current is increases. So whenever we are going to increase the load, here the current is going to increase. As the current is increases, the current through the coil is also increases. So therefore we can say the copper loss is also increases. Whereas the eddy current losses, because as a core in a transformer, as there are eddy currents are going to produce, because the core is going to have a alternating flux. So whenever there is an alternating flux which is going to produce in the core, there is a eddy currents which are going to produce in the core. So because of that, there is some amount of losses in the core transformer. So therefore in order to remove the eddy current losses, we have to use a very thin laminations, and also between the laminations we have to keep some insulation. So because of that, here the path for the eddy current loss become very highly resistive. So therefore now the eddy current loss is going to decrease. So here we have to reduce the eddy current losses with the help of thin laminations. And also hysteresis loss, because these hysteresis loss are also going to produce in the transformer core, because whatever the thing we are going to use, the core of a transformer is generally made of silicon steel. So basically it is a ferromagnetic material. So for a ferromagnetic material there will be a small BH loop. So because of this BH loop, the dipoles are need magnetization in order to have some movement. So therefore because of this, some amount of energy is consumed in these dipoles. So because of that, there is a small amount of hysteresis losses, and also there is a frictional losses. If you take any rotational motion machine like DC motor or induction motor, what is going to happen is whenever the rotor is going to rotate, so there is a friction between the atmosphere and the rotating part. So therefore as there is a friction between the rotating part and the atmosphere, then there will be some amount of frictional losses. Always the frictional loss is directly proportional to the speed whole square. It is directly proportional to the speed square. So therefore the frictional loss is going to depend upon the speed square. This is the relation between the frictional loss and the speed of any rotating body. So all these losses, because of all these losses, we are going to produce, they are going to produce some amount of heat in an electrical machine. So all these are considered as losses, and because of these losses, yes, some amount of energy is lost or some amount of heat is produced in the electric machine. So now we are going to solve the second question. See the question here. The law which gives the direction of the induced EMF is. So the law which gives the direction of the induced EMF is option A Faraday's law, option B Biot-Savart's law, option C Lenz's law, option D Fleming's left hand rule. So out of the four options, option C Lenz's law is the correct solution of this question. So let's discuss something more about this one. So now we'll discuss each and every law here. So let me discuss the first law, which is the Lenz's law. So what is Lenz's law? It's simple, it's nothing but here. Suppose there is a coil here. Suppose there is a closed coil. So I have taken one magnet, which is north pole and south pole. So therefore if I am going to move this magnet towards this closed coil, means there is a magnetic field in this direction, which is B1. So as the magnetic field is going to go inside this closed coil, so because of this there will be some amount of current which is going to produce in this closed loop, so that whatever this current, because of this current, some amount of magnetic flux is going to get produced. So the direction of the magnetic flux will be in such a direction, it is going to oppose this original magnetic field. So therefore we can say, as this magnetic field is in this direction, so therefore this coil is going to produce the magnetic field in this direction, which is B2. So therefore in order to be like this one, so what is the direction of the current in this one? So then you have to keep the thumb in the direction of the current and curl the finger. So therefore we are going to get the magnetic field in this direction. So therefore whenever you are going to move this magnet towards the coil, the current will produced in this coil in such a way, so therefore the magnetic field produced by this current in this coil will be opposing the original cause. So therefore this is a B2, so this is a B1, so these two are now opposing each other. So therefore this is the current. So whenever this is the current, we know that in this closed loop the current direction will be in this manner. So I can represent this coil, like this one. See, this coil will have some amount of resistance, and the current is going to flow in this direction. So therefore I can see that here I can represent like this one, because I am going to replace this circuit with the help of this electrical circuit diagram, which is a small amount of resistance of the coil, and here this is a negative terminal and this is a positive terminal. So this is the induced EMF. So because of this induced EMF, the current is going to produce in such a way. So I can represent this circuit like this one. So with the help of Lenz's law, we can know what is the direction of the induced EMF, whether like this way or whether like in a reverse manner. So we know the value of the current also, direction of the current also, and also we can know the direction of the induced EMF, whether like this polarity or whether like this polarity. So we can know each and everything with the help of Lenz's law. So with the help of Lenz's law, we can figure out the direction of the induced EMF, whether in this direction or the reverse direction, because always in the Lenz's law, the current which is going to produce in this closed coil will oppose the original magnetic field. So by this manner we can get this one. So then what is the Biot-Savart's law? So Biot-Savart's law is going to give you the expression of the magnetic field at each and every point in a space. Suppose there is a conductor, suppose there is a one wire like this. So in this wire the current is going to produce in this direction. So I want to know what is the magnetic field because of this wire at a point P. So I want to know what is this magnetic field at a point P. So in order to do that one, see, we have to take a small amount of length there, DL. So this is a DL. So the direction of the DL should be in the direction of the current. So therefore, and here suppose I am going to draw one small line, dotted line, and this is the distance between the line and the point P, and this is the angle theta, and this is the angle theta. So therefore now the mathematical expression for the magnetic field because of this small delta L. So because of this small delta L, there will be a small amount of magnetic field, which is dP. Because of this small delta L is equal to mu I by 4 pi into dl bar cross r bar by r square, where r bar is called as this is the r vector. This is the r vector which is from initial to final position, but r cap is nothing but it is a unit vector. So therefore we can say here, if we expand this one, we are going to get dl r sine theta. Theta is the angle between the dl and the r. So therefore by this manner we can get this one. See, this is a unit vector, right? So dl sine theta we are going to get here. So now dl sine theta by r square into mu I by 4 pi. So this is the magnetic field at a point P because of the small dl. But if you want to know what is the magnetic field due to whole wire, then you have to go for the integration. So finally what I am trying to say is very simple. With the help of Biot-Savart's law, we can know the exact value of the magnetic field at any point P because of the current in a wire. So now we'll discuss about the Fleming's left hand rule. So Fleming's left hand rule is used in the DC motors, because in a DC motor we know the value of the magnetic field and also we know the direction of the magnetic field and also we know the direction of the current. All we have to know is what is the force on a conductor. So what is the force on a conductor? So this is the Fleming's left hand rule, which is the thumb is going to indicate the force and forefinger is going to represent the magnetic field, and also middle finger is going to indicate the current, which is this thumb is going to force and this is a B and this is current I. So with the help of these three mutual perpendicular lines, yes, if you know the two things, then we can figure out the direction of the other thing. So by using this Fleming left hand rule, the main aim to determine what is the force on the DC motor, and we know that what is the magnetic field direction, and also we know the direction of the current. So Fleming's right hand rule. So basically Fleming's right hand rule, it is used in the DC generator, because in a DC generator we know the value of the force, and we also know what is the value of the forefinger, means which is the magnetic field. All we have to know is what is the current in a DC generator. So what is the direction of the current in a DC generator, we need to figure out. So based on this Fleming right hand rule, here thumb indicates the force and forefinger indicates the magnetic field and the middle finger indicates the current. So these three are the mutual perpendicular lines. So based on this, if we know the two values direction, then we can figure out what is the other quantity direction also we can figure out. So with the help of Fleming right hand rule. Suppose if you are confused with this Fleming left hand rule and Fleming right hand rule, just thing is remember this one, which is F cap is equal to I cap cross B cap. So here always the direction of the force is equal to direction of the current cross product of direction of the magnetic field. So this formula is used for both Fleming left hand rule and also Fleming right hand rule. So you don't have to remember this left hand rule, right hand rule also. If you know this concept, you can apply the same concept either to the Fleming left hand rule and also to Fleming right hand rule, which is F cap is equal to I cap cross B cap, where F cap indicates the direction of the force and I cap indicates the direction of the current and B cap indicates the direction of the magnetic field. So this formula is valid for both Fleming left hand rule and Fleming right hand rule. So if you know any two quantities, you can easily figure out the direction of the other quantity with the help of this formula. And also there is a Faraday's law. So what is the Faraday's law? Which is E is equal to minus n d phi by dt. So this Faraday's law, it is going to give you what is the mathematical expression of the induced EMF. So here, because of in this coil some amount of EMF is going to produce. So I want to know what is the mathematical expression or mathematical value. I want to figure out what is that actual value, which is equal to minus n d phi by dt. So here minus we are going to use because when we don't know actual value of the current direction, EMF direction, when we don't know, means in this we are not going to include the Lenz law. Lenz law is not included, means we have to keep negative. If Lenz law is included, then we have to keep the positive. So what the true meaning of negative and positive is very simple. See here, suppose if you don't know what is the direction, with the help of Lenz law, then we can use minus. Suppose if you know the direction of the induced EMF, then you have to place a, if you know, then you have to use the plus d phi by dt. Suppose, let me tell you a small example here. So in this coil the current is produced. So here I have already told you this is the direction of the current. So now you can figure out that here the direction of the induced EMF will be in this manner, positive to the right side and negative to the left side. Then because by using the Lenz law you have figured out this is the polarity of the induced EMF. So then you have to use this is the positive plus n d phi by dt. This is the formula you have to use, which is E is equal to, let me assume this is the R resistor. So E is equal to IR. So in place of E, I can use n d phi by dt is equal to I into R. Suppose if I don't know the polarity of this one, so if I don't know the polarity of this one, so I am going to use, this is a some box. Then what you have to do is, here you have to use the negative sign. So therefore minus n d phi by dt is equal to IR. So this is the thing you have to use. So when you know that what is the polarity of the induced EMF, then you have to use the plus n d phi by dt. And if you don't know the direction of the induced EMF without Lenz law, so you are not applying Lenz law, then you have to use the minus n d phi by dt. This is a simple logic here. So Faraday's law, it is going to give you what is the exact value of the EMF which is induced in this coil. It is a mathematical expression. So out of this, in this question they ask what, so which law it is going to give you the direction of the induced EMF. So with the help of Lenz law, we know what is the polarity in this EMF is induced. So we can say Lenz law is the correct solution of this question. So now we are going to solve the third question. See the question here. A three-phase induction motor is drawing a current of 30 ampere at 0.8 power factor lag from three-phase mains at certain load. Due to fault, a line gets open. Now the current on single phasing when power factor is 0.6 lag would be. So basically here, when the three phase are working properly, they are given the power factor of the load and also they are given what is the current here. And now suppose one line is got open circuited or it is got fault, then this circuit has become a single phase circuit. So with the help of this one, what is the current for the same load, a different load of power factor which is 0.6 lagging power factor, then we have to figure out what is the current which is going to draw by this motor. We need to figure out. So out of the four options, option A, 40 into root 3 is the correct solution of this question. So let's solve this numerical. Basically here in the first case, they are given an induction motor, a 3-phase induction motor. It is going to drive a certain load. So at this condition, they are given a balanced supply. Then the current they are going to get, the line current is 30 ampere at a power factor of 0.8 lag. So this is the power factor between the supply voltage and the supply current. So now at the same load, suppose there is a one fault in the one of the line in the for the 3-phase induction motor. So suppose one line is got fault, it means it is open circuited. Then we have to find what is the current which is drawn by this 3-phase induction motor at the same load. We need to figure out. And now the power factor has become 0.6 lag. So previously the power factor is 0.8 lag and now the power factor has become 0.6 lag. So see, whenever we are opening the one circuit or one line, then whatever the current is going to go, so this is the current in this phase is also IL2, but here this is open circuit, so therefore this current will not pass from here. So whatever this current IL2, it will go through this phase also. So therefore we can say now these two coils are now in series fashion. So we can say these two coils are becoming a one coil, which is some of them, and also the same current is going to flow through this both coils. So we can say now this is nothing but a single phase. It is going to behave like a single phase. So therefore now we have to find what is this current IL2 when one of the line got faulted. So they have not given more than this. So we are going to assume whatever the input power is same in both the cases. So we are going to assume that, so whatever the input power for this 3-phase induction motor is same in both the cases. So basically this has become a 3-phase induction motor. Now this has become a single phase induction motor because there is only one phase. So therefore now we are going to assume that the power input for a 3-phase is equal to power input for a single phase. Power input for a 3-phase is equal to power input for a single phase induction motor. See here for a 3-phase, the active power formula is root 3 VL IL cos phi. So root 3 for the first case means VL1 IL1 cos phi 1. So and the second case, which is single phase motor, for a single phase motor the power factor will be VL cos phi. So VI cos phi. So that VI cos phi is the expression for a single phase. So therefore here V is nothing but is the VL2 and IL2 is the current here, and also this is the cos phi 2. So for these two terminals the line voltage is VL1, and for this also two lines the voltage is VL2. So here as the supply is same, so the line voltage is also same. So therefore VL1 is equal to VL2 because the supply is same for both the cases. So therefore VL1 is equal to VL2. So we can cancel this one, and remaining values we know, which is root 3 into IL1 is 30 ampere and cos phi 1 is 0.8, and IL2 we need to figure out, and cos phi 2 is, which is power factor of the second, is 0.6. So if you solve this one, we are going to get 40 into root 3 ampere. So basically here now we are going to assume that the active power to the inputs of this induction motor in both the cases is as same. So here we have used the active power expression for a 3-phase, which is the expression of the 3-phase power is root 3 VL IL cos phi for the first case, and the single phase power expression which is VI cos phi. So based on that we have solved this numerical and we have figured out the correct value of the answer, which is 40 root 3 ampere. So whenever one line get faulted, we are going to get a single phase motor because these two windings are now in series. So therefore this total winding will become a now single winding. So it is called as a single phase motor. So this is a 3-phase motor. So now we are going to solve the fourth question. See the question here. A star circuit and its equivalent delta are shown. The resistance between the terminals A and B in the star circuit with C open is 10 ohms. The resistance between the terminals A and B with C open in the delta circuit in ohms will be. So basically they are given two circuits which are the equivalent circuits, star and the delta fashion. So basically for the star circuit with respect to A and B and C is open, they are given the resistance is equal to 10 ohms. So same thing if for the delta circuit also we have to find what is the resistance, equivalent resistance between the A and B when C is open, we need to figure out. So out of the four options, option C 10 ohm is the correct solution of this question. So let's solve this numerical. Basically these two circuits are equivalent circuits. So this is a star and this is a delta, means whatever the power consumed by these three resistors in star fashion is equal to the power consumed by this whole circuit. So the power consumed by this circuit is equal to power consumed by this circuit. That is the true meaning of the conversion, or we can say equivalent circuits. So this is the terminal A, B and C, and here also terminal A, B and C. So basically in this question they have given that when A and B, we want to find what is the equivalent resistance with respect to A and B when C is open. Then they have figured out that equivalent resistance is equal to 10 ohm in the first case. And now same thing, they want to find what is the resistance across the A and B when C is open. That is what they want to figure out. So now I want to do the conversion from star circuit to delta circuit. So I want to know what is the values of RAB, RCA and RBC. As these three are identical, so therefore each and every value will be same. RAB is equal to RBC is equal to RCA. So which is, suppose by using the star delta conversion, I want to know what is the value of this delta. Suppose this is the value of delta, sum of this adjacent plus product of the adjacent by the opposite value. So by using that formula here, RAB is equal to RBC is equal to RCA is equal to R plus R into R by R. So if you solve this one, which is sum of the adjacent plus product of the adjacent by the opposite. So if you solve this one, we are going to get 3R. So in the question they also given that for the star circuit, the equivalent resistance between the A and B when C is open, which is 10 ohm. So when A and B equivalent circuit means whatever the current here, let me assume the current is I. So this is the open circuit, so current will be 0 ampere. So same current will go here also. So therefore these two resistance are in series fashion. So we can say R plus R is equal to 10 ohm. So R plus R is nothing but 2R is equal to 10. So if you solve this one, we are going to get here, which is R is equal to 5 ohm. So for this delta fashion, now I want to find what is the resistance across the A and B when C is open. So when C is open, you can see clearly that RCA and RBC are connected in series, and this overall combination is again with parallel with respect to RAB. So therefore in delta circuit when C is open, I want to know what is the equivalent resistance across A and B. So R equivalent is equal to RCA and RBC are connected in series, and overall this series is in parallel with the RAB. So therefore RCA plus RBC is in parallel with the RAB. So RCA and RBC both are values are same, which is 3R, 3R and 3R. So 3R plus 3R is 6R, 6R parallel with 3R. So if you do the parallel 6R into 3R, 3R by 6R plus 3R, so we are going to get 2R. So I know the value of R, which is 5 ohm. So therefore substitute here 2 into 5 is equal to 10 ohm. So therefore we can say the equivalent resistance is 10 ohm. So when the C is open, the equivalent resistance across the A and B terminal is 5. And similarly for this A and B circuit, for A and B terminals, the equivalent resistance between A and B when C is open for this delta fashion, which is 10 ohm. So 10 ohm is the correct solution of this question. So now we are going to solve the fifth question. See the question here. Which of the following statements is false for a sine wave? So what are the four options? We have to say which one is the false statement for a sine wave. Option A, the peak factor is 1.414. Option B, the average value is 0.637 times the RMS value. And option C, the RMS value is 0.707 times the peak value. And the option D, the form factor is 1.11. So what are the four options? Option B is the wrong here. So actually it has to be the average value is 0.637 times the maximum value. It has to be not the RMS value. And now we will discuss something more about this one. So now we'll discuss some of the important facts for a sine wave. So let me assume the expression voltage V of t is equal to Vm sin omega t. So the average value of this signal is Vrh is equal to 2 Vm by pi, and the RMS value of the sinusoidal signal is Vm by root 2, maximum value by root 2. So now I want to find some of the important parameters for this signal sine wave. So basically the peak factor or crest factor. So peak factor or crest factor, the formula is which is ratio of the maximum value by the RMS value. So maximum value of a sinusoidal signal is Vm, and also the RMS value of the signal is which is Vm by root 2. So substitute here and solve this one, we are going to get root 2. So root 2 value is 1.414. So therefore for a sinusoidal signal, the crest factor or the peak factor which is 1.414, and also here the average value is 2 Vm by pi. So 2 by pi is nothing but 0.637 into here Vm is the maximum value, but in the option B they are given the average value is equal to 0.637 times the RMS value. So it is incorrect, it has to be a maximum value. And also the form factor, the formula of the form factor which is ratio of the RMS value by the average value. So for a sinusoidal signal, the RMS value is Vm by root 2 and the average value is 2 Vm by pi. So if you solve this one, we are going to get pi by 2 into root 2. So if you solve solve this one, we are going to get 1.11. So therefore 1.11 is the form factor for the sinusoidal wave, and also the RMS value, which is Vm by root 2. So 1 by root 2 is nothing but 0.707 times the Vm is called as a maximum value. So therefore RMS is equal to 0.707 times the maximum value. And these are the some of the important facts or some of the important factors for this sine wave. So peak factor or crest factor for a pure sinusoidal wave is 1.414, and also the average value is 0.637 times the maximum value, and the form factor for a sinusoidal wave, which is 1.11, and also for RMS of any pure sinusoidal signal, which is 0.707 times the maximum value. So now we are going to solve the sixth question. See the question here. The maximum power that can be transferred to the load RL in watts in the circuit shown is. So basically for this circuit, we have to find at what value of R, or we can say what is the maximum power that can be received by the load RL, which is a variable load. So what are the four options? Option A, 50 watt is the correct solution of this question. So let's solve this numerical. For this circuit, we have to find what is the maximum power that can be transferred for this variable load. We need to figure out. So basically this is a practical current source. So I want to convert this practical current source to a practical voltage source. So practical voltage source polarity will be, so arrow at the arrow direction will be positive and the tail will be negative. So the voltage will be current into resistance. So 5 into 8, which is 40, and the series will be the resistance of the practical current source is equal to the value of the series practical resistance, practical voltage source. The value will be same. But here in the practical current source, they are connected in parallel fashion. But in practical voltage source, the series resistance is connected in series with respect to the voltage, which is 8 ohm. And this is a variable load. So this is a variable load, which is RL. So I want to figure out what is the maximum power which is absorbed by this source. I need to figure out by this absorbed by this load. I need to figure out basically at maximum power transfer. At maximum power transfer, always the value of the RL should be equal to the internal resistance. So at these conditions means whenever the RL value is equal to internal resistance, which is equal to 8 ohm. Here it is 8 ohm. So therefore whenever the load value resistance is equal to internal resistance, at that condition we are going to get the maximum current, as the current itself is a maximum value. So therefore the power dissipation at the load is also maximum value. So therefore RL is equal to 8 ohm. So these two are connected in series fashion. So current is equal to total voltage by total resistance. As these two resistors are connected in series, so therefore 8 plus 8 is the total resistance. So total current is equal to total voltage by total resistance. So 40 by 8 plus 8, which is 40 by 16. So if you solve this one, we are going to get 2.5 ampere. So therefore 2.5 ampere of current is going to flow here. So I want to know what is the power. I want to know what is the actual power which is delivered at this condition, or the actual power which is consumed by the load. I want to figure out, which is P is equal to I square times the load resistance RL. So I value is 2.5 whole square and RL is 8. So if you solve this one, we are going to get 50 watt. So therefore 50 watt is the maximum amount of power which is absorbed by this load resistance, which is RL. So 50 watt is the correct solution of this question. So now we are going to solve the seventh question. See the question here. In the circuit shown, the frequency of the sinusoidal source is about. So here this is a circuit. For this electrical circuit, I want to figure out what is the frequency of the source. I need to figure out F value. We need to figure out. So if you see carefully, the value of the voltage source is 100 at an angle of 30 degree, and the current in the electrical circuit, which is I is equal to 10 at an angle of 30 degree. So both are in phase. So both are in phase. It indicates that the circuit is a purely resistive, or we can say the circuit is going to operate at a resonance conditions. So based on this, we have to find what is the value of the frequency of the source. We need to figure out. So what are the four options? Option D, 16 Hz is the correct solution of this question. So let's solve this numerical. So basically this is the electrical circuit they are given. The supply voltage is 100 at an angle of 30 degree, and the supply current, which is 10 at an angle of 30 degree, and these the resistance are the inductance here L is equal to 0.1 Henry, and the capacitor reactance, which is Xc is equal to 10 ohm. So based on this, we have to find what is the supply frequency F. We need to figure out. So if you see carefully here, I want to draw the phasor diagram of the voltage and the current. So this is a phasor diagram. Let me assume this is a reference phasor of 0 degree. So therefore the voltage will be, it is going to lead the phasor by reference phasor by 30 degree. Means it's a positive, means we have to go in the anti-clockwise direction. So therefore this is the anti-clockwise direction of 30 degree. This is the voltage phasor, and the current phasor is also leading the reference phasor by the 30 degree. So this is the current phasor and voltage phasor. So these both are in the phase. So we can say that this circuit is a purely resistive circuit. The purely resistive circuit means the circuit is going to operate at a resistance condition. So this is a net impedance, which is the impedance of the whole circuit is equal to Z is equal to R plus J XL minus XC. So therefore, as the circuit is going to operate at a resonance, so at resonance what is going to happen? The condition is it is a purely resistive circuit. So therefore we can say the impedance term will be 0. So whatever the imaginary part term will be 0. So here the imaginary part is XL minus XC. So always this has to be equal to 0. So at resonance condition, the imaginary part of impedance and also the imaginary part of the admittance both are equal, always 0. So therefore for impedance the imaginary part should be equal to 0 at resonance condition. So therefore XL minus XC is equal to 0. So XL is equal to XC. So XL is nothing but reactance of the inductance, which is omega L is equal to XC. So omega is called as a 2 pi f. So into L is equal to XC. So I want to know what is the value of F. F is equal to XC by 2 pi L. So the value of XC, which is given 10 ohm, and 2 pi into L value is 0.1 Henry. So substitute here. So we are going to get finally 15.9 hertz. It is nearly equal to 16 hertz. So based on the resonance condition, we have solved this numerical. So finally we have got the frequency of the supply source, which is 16 hertz. Now we are going to solve the 8th question. See the question here. In the circuit shown in figure, the switch is on position 1 for long enough to establish steady state current and switch to position 2 at t is equal to 0. The current I for t greater than or equal to 0. This is basically an electrical circuit. So for this circuit, they have given that they have kept this switch for the position for a lot of time. So therefore, the circuit is in a steady state condition. So then at t is equal to 0, they are moving the switch to position 2. So now we have to find what is the expression of the current we need to figure out. For this, t greater than or equal to 0, we need to figure out. So what are the 4 options? Option C is the correct solution of this question, which is 5 into e to the power of minus 50 t ampere is the correct solution of this question. So let's solve this numerical. So basically in this question, they are given that here at t less than 0 means the circuit is in the switch is at the position 1 and it is also in the steady state. And when we are moving the switch to position at t is equal to 0, we are moving this switch to position 2, then we have to find what is the expression of the current we need to figure out in this circuit. So now I am going to take here at the position 1 for t less than 0. So we can say that at t less than 0, I want to know at t less than 0, the switch is at position 1. So this is a circuit we are going to get here. And also they are told that the circuit is connected in such a manner, means it is going to give a steady state. So therefore, I want to know what is from minus infinity at t less than or equal to 0, the circuit is at switch 1. So therefore, we can say the circuit is at steady state condition. So at steady state condition, what is going to happen? For an inductor, the current will be a maximum value, means it will be reaching a constant value. So therefore, the expression of the current across the voltage of the inductor VL is equal to L di by dt. As the current to the inductor is a constant value, so therefore di by dt will become 0. So therefore we can say VL will become 0. So therefore we have to short circuit the inductor at steady state when we apply DC source. So therefore I want to replace this inductor with a short circuit. So I want to know what is this current, which is the I of 0 minus, just before we are moving the switch to the position 2, which is I of 0 minus. So I want to know what is this current. So voltage is given and also the resistance is given. So based on this, we have to find what is the value of the current. Steady state current is equal to voltage by resistance, which is I of 0 minus is equal to, as inductor is short circuited. So therefore I of 0 minus is equal to voltage by resistor. So voltage is 50 ohm and resistor is 10 ohm. So if you solve this one, we are going to get 5 ampere. So 5 ampere is the current just before you move the switch to position 2. So now I want to move. So at t is equal to 0, I am moving the switch to position 2. So now what is the equivalent circuit? So this is the equivalent circuit we are going to get here. This is the current I of t, this is the resistor 10 ohm and this is the inductor 0.2 Henry. So this we are going to make this is the position 2 switch. So switch is at the position 2 now. So at this condition means at t greater than or equal to 0, this is a circuit. So at t greater than or equal to 0, I want to figure out what is the expression of the current I want to figure out. So basically here, listen carefully, the current in an inductor doesn't changes instantaneously, means the current in an inductor doesn't changes instantaneously, means it is not going to vary. A drop change will not occur, it will go in a slow manner, slow increase or slow decrease, but there will be no instantaneous changes of the current in the inductor. And also across voltages, across the capacitor, it it won't change instantaneously. So based on that rule, so I want to find what is the current at 0 plus. So therefore current in the circuit at 0 minus is equal to current in the circuit at 0 plus is equal to current in the circuit at 0. So we can say the current at 0 is equal to, which is, so already we know the current in the inductor just instant before you switch to position 2, which is I of 0 minus is equal to 5. So all these things are equal to now 5 ampere. So I want to figure out what is the general expression of the current. So which is I of t is equal to I of infinity plus I of 0 minus I of infinity into e to the power of t minus tau, t by tau, which is for t greater than or equal to 0. So basically this easy way to remember is, which is FIF, final value, initial value and final value, and here you have to keep a positive sign and here you have to keep a negative sign, and then here you have to u for the e to the power of minus t by tau. So this is a general expression to remember this one, which is final value plus initial value minus final value into e to the power of minus t by tau for t greater than or equal to 0. So if you see carefully, at steady state, whatever the energy which is stored in the inductor, it is going to deliver, it is going to give to the resistor. At infinity, the current is going to become 0 because the energy will goes on decaying, it is goes on decaying. So finally it has to be equal to 0, then only the energy in the inductor will become 0, because energy in the inductor is equal to half L I t square. So when the current in the inductor is 0, then only the energy will become 0. So based on this, at a steady state the energy in the inductor will become 0. So therefore at a steady state the current in the inductor will be, or the circuit will be 0. So therefore I of infinity is equal to 0 and I of 0 value we know, which is 5 ampere, and I want to know what is the time constant of this circuit, which is L by R. The L value is 0.2 Henry and the resistor is 10 ohm. So you can see L value is 0.2 Henry and the resistor is 10 ohm. So substitute here, finally we are going to get 0.02 is the time constant of this circuit. So substitute all these values in this general expression, then here we are going to get the final value is 0 and initial value is 5 and the final value is 0 into e to the power of minus t by 2 value is 0.02 for t greater than or equal to 0. So if you solve this one, finally we are going to get I of t is equal to 5 into e to the power of minus 50t for t greater than or equal to 0. So therefore this is a correct expression of this solution. So therefore at t greater than or equal to 0, the current in this circuit will be I of t is equal to 5 into e to the power of minus 50t for t greater than or equal to 0. I have already told you how to remember this formula, which is final value plus initial value minus final value into e to the power of minus t by tau. Now we are solving the 9th question. See the question here. Refer to the circuit shown in figure. This is the electrical circuit. If V of s and I of s are the Laplace transform of V of t and I of t, then what is the ratio of the I of s by V of s? We need to figure out. So what are the four options? Option A is the correct solution of this question. So let's solve this numerical. So this is the electrical circuit they are given. The voltage source is V of t and the current is I of t. The inductor value is 1 Henry and the resistor value is 1 ohm and the capacitor is 1 farad. So based on this, we have to find what is the ratio of the I of s by V of s in the Laplace transform. In the Laplace domain, we have to figure out the ratio. So basically here, the time domain, so V of t in the Laplace, this is a electrical circuit in the time domain. So I want to convert into Laplace domain. So therefore V of t will become V of s and I of t will become I of s, and here L will become SL. So here L will become SL, S into L. L value is 1. So S into 1 is nothing but S. And the resistor is 1 ohm. So therefore same, it will doesn't changes. So it will be same as the previous one, 1. And here the capacitor will become 1 by SC. So here C value is 1 farad. So 1 by S into 1 is nothing but 1 by S. So now here this is the circuit is simplified. So now I want to apply the voltage principle, which is voltage is equal to current into total impedance of the circuit. So V of s is equal to I of s into total impedance of the circuit is S plus 1 plus 1 by S. So S plus 1 plus 1 by S. So then here I want to know what is the I of s by V of s. So we are going to get 1 by S plus 1 plus 1 by S. So if you solve this one, if you simplify this one, we are going to get S by S square plus S plus 1. So finally I of s by V of s is equal to the expression of the ratio of the I of s by V of s, which is S by S square plus S plus 1. And this is the correct solution of this question. So this is the last question of this lecture. See the question here. Choose the odd one out. Symbols used are of direct notation. So out of these four options, we have to choose which is the odd one out of all these options. So out of the four options, option D is the omega L is the correct solution of this question. So let's solve this numerical. So in this question they are given the four options, which is 2 pi by omega, RC, L by R and omega L. So based on this we have to choose which is the odd option out of all these 4. So 2 by omega. So omega is nothing but 2 by f. So I am going to replace omega by 2 by f. So 2 by 2 by get cancels. So finally we are going to get 1 by frequency. So 1 by frequency means the time. So therefore the unit of the time is seconds. And similarly RC is in electrical circuit. RC means it is a time constant of a RC circuit, which is RC is equal to tau. So the value of the tau is always second. The unit of the tau is second. And similarly L by R. So in electrical circuit L by R represents it is a time constant for a inductive circuit. So therefore now the time constant means it is a seconds, its unit is seconds. And similarly here omega L means it is a inductive reactance. So when you keep an AC source, the inductor is going to behave like some reactance, which is omega into L. So it is going to depend upon the frequency of the source, which is XL. So here the unit of this reactance is ohm. So if you see carefully, the first 3 options are going to the units are seconds, whereas the last one is the unit is ohm. So it is an odd one out of all the remaining 3. So therefore option D is the correct solution of this question. So by this lecture we have successfully completed the 10 questions, which are the questions of the AP SPDCL 2019 electrical paper solutions in a very detailed manner. And if you like the content of our channel, then please do like, share and subscribe our YouTube channel, and don't forget to press the bell icon button, so whenever you upload a new video, the direct notification comes on mobile. If any improvements needed in our video lectures, then please do comment in the comment section. We will definitely include all those improvements in the coming lectures. Thank you so much for watching this lecture. Keep smiling, take care and bye bye.